Ever mailed a birthday card? Sure, but what if I told you that back in the early 1900s, some folks in America actually mailed their kids through the US Postal Service? I'm not kidding. Stamp on the coat, off they went to grandma's house. And that's just one of the bizarre, head-scratching laws that were once totally legal in this country. From smoking in hospitals, to banning snowball fights, to women being excluded from jury duty, America has had its fair share of strange rules. Rules that, at the time, made sense to someone. But looking back now, you can't help but laugh or cringe. Today, we're diving into the weird, wild world of laws that used to be perfectly legal until society said, hold up, maybe that's not okay. You see, back then, America was a very different place. We're talking about a country where each state, even each town, could write its own set of rules. No federal oversight, no big safety commissions, just good old common sense, whatever that meant at the time. And in many cases, the rules weren't written because something made sense. They were written because something hadn't gone wrong yet. People weren't thinking about long-term health risks, gender equality, or personal freedom. They were thinking about order, tradition, and keeping things the way they'd always been. So what seemed normal back then, like lighting up a cigarette in a classroom or banning women from jury duty, now feels like something straight out of a bad sitcom. But that's the thing about laws. They're a mirror of the time we live in. And when the times change, the rules usually follow, eventually. So, what were some of these strange laws and customs that actually made it into real life? Let's take a look at a few that existed and thankfully don't anymore. All right, let's get into it. Because when it comes to America's legal past, some of the rules sound less like law books and more like comedy sketches. Mailing children through the US Postal Service. Believe it or not, in the 1910s, a few families actually mailed their children. They pinned a stamp to the kid's coat, handed them to the local mailman, and off they went, often to grandma's house. It was cheap, convenient, and somehow legal. The post office eventually banned it, but not before a handful of successful deliveries. Imagine trying that with UPS today. No seat belts required for anyone. For decades, cars didn't come with seatbelts. Even when they did, nobody was required to buckle up. Kids rode up front, bounced around in the back, or sprawled out on the rear window ledge during road trips. Parents didn't call it reckless, they called it freedom. Smoking in hospitals, airplanes, and classrooms. Yes, doctors smoked during surgery. Passengers lit up the moment a plane left the ground. Teachers had ashtrays next to the chalkboard. It wasn't rebellious or shocking. It was just everyday life. The idea that secondhand smoke could harm others came much later. Women banned from jury duty. In many states, women couldn't serve on juries until the 1960s or 70s. Lawmakers claimed they were too emotional, or that household duties came first. Looking back, it feels absurd, but for decades that exclusion was written directly into law. Snowball fights, criminal offense. Some towns, like Wausau, Wisconsin, actually banned snowball fights. On paper, tossing one could get you fined. In practice, most folks ignored it, but the law stayed on the books anyway. Blue laws, dancing and shopping. Bans on Sundays rooted in old religious traditions. Blue laws banned all kinds of activities on Sundays. In some states, that meant no alcohol sales, no public dancing, even no loud music. These laws were meant to protect the Sabbath, but for young people they were nothing but buzzkills. Toothbrush sales banned on Sundays. Here's one of the strangest. In early 20th century Connecticut, you could buy a firearm, but not a toothbrush. The logic? Don't even try to figure it out. And that's just scratching the surface. America's legal history is full of rules that sound like they came from the Twilight Zone, which raises the real question. If these laws lasted so long, what finally made people decide to change them? That's what we'll dig into next. So, what happened? How did America move on from mailing kids through the Postal Service, puffing away in hospitals, or keeping women out of jury boxes? In short, we evolved. As science advanced, the blind spots of the past became harder to ignore. Doctors and researchers published undeniable evidence about the dangers of smoking. Suddenly, a cigarette wasn't just a casual accessory, it was a public health crisis. At the same time, tragedy pushed change. Fatal car crashes involving families without seatbelts filled headlines. What once felt like freedom now looked like recklessness. Public campaigns, grieving parents, and safety advocates demanded lawmakers act. And eventually they did. Civil rights movements also reshaped the landscape. Women's rights groups and civil liberties advocates exposed how outdated laws weren't just quirky, they were discriminatory and harmful. The idea that women were too emotional to serve on juries collapsed under the weight of activism and common sense. Bit by bit, rules based on tradition rather than fairness were dismantled. Consumer protection added another layer. By the mid-20th century, watchdog agencies like the FDA, EPA, and Consumer Product Safety Commission forced companies and communities to confront uncomfortable truths. Just because something had always been done a certain way didn't mean it was safe, fair, or right. And here's the strangest part. Many of these oddball laws didn't disappear overnight. Some lingered quietly in law books for decades until someone finally said, "Wait, that's still legal?" But that's the nature of progress. The world changes, science advances, people demand better. And eventually, sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly, the law follows. Which brings us to today. Think your hometown is free of bizarre rules? Don't be so sure. Some strange laws are still hiding in plain sight, and you might be breaking one without even knowing it. Isn't it wild to think how much has changed in just a few generations? One moment you're a kid riding in the back of a pickup, no seatbelt, tossing a snowball at a friend while your parents barely notice. Fast forward to today, and your grandkids can't even ride a scooter without a helmet, knee pads, and a parent hovering nearby. It's easy to laugh at how different things are now. But those old rules, or the lack of them, weren't strange at the time. They were simply life. Every odd law and outdated custom is like a snapshot of the world as it used to be, reminding us that progress doesn't come all at once. It happens in small shifts, through accidents, discoveries, or someone finally asking, "Does this really make sense?" And now, we'd love to hear from you. What's the strangest rule, law, or everyday normal you remember growing up with? Was it something unique to your town, your school, or maybe even your own family? Drop your story in the comments. Let's see how many of us share the same, "Wait, that was legal?" moment. If this video sparked a memory, give it a like and subscribe for more quirky deep dives into America's past. Until next time, stay curious, keep questioning, and maybe take a second look at your local laws. You never know what kind of oddities are still hiding in plain sight.